What is up, everybody? Coach Joe Frontier here, Throw Big, Throw Far. It's great to have you seeing us. So often I'm on the podcast and kind of behind the camera and you guys are listening. You go to the YouTube and I don't put my face on the YouTube very often, but recently we've had some opportunities to talk with some people that want to show us something. And I thought this was really critical as a lot of us are in the meat of track season. And those of you who are watching this and it's not track season, I'm thinking it's always track season. So for me, training kids, whether it's at my high school or in my club or my online clients, we're constantly thinking about throwing. One of the things that I'm always looking to do is get the right shoes on throwers, especially young throwers as they're starting out. They come to practice in all sorts of weird things. And the idea of getting them into some throwing shoes for me is so critical because it makes our task easier as coaches and as athletes. Velossa has been around for a few years now, and throwing shoes have been made by the big companies, and they kind of got around to track and field. Wasn't their main thing always, and then they got around to throwing shoes eventually. But Lynden Reder here, was a throws coach, and now has founded Velaasa, and these are throwing shoes made with throwing in mind, a whole company kind of built around Olympic sport athletes. And I'm really excited to have Lynden here to kind of tell us about the shoes that he's created and designed and some of the people that he works with and the success of these shoes. So Lynden, welcome and thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking about the shoes that we've got to offer.
So let's go kind of chronologically through what you designed in terms of what your mission was with Velossa in terms of getting these shoes made that would really work for throwers. What do you got in your hands there, and tell us a little bit about that shoe?
This is our first throwing shoe. This is the Velossa Revolution. And we worked with Joe Kovacs to design this shoe. Even though it was a little bit more of a glide, entry-level rotational shoe, Joe was kind enough to kind of work through that process with us, always knowing that we had an eye to coming out with then a rotational version to complement it. And so this shoe is designed primarily for glide or wet conditions, or a real, just a slick concrete circle. So a little bit more traction, a little bit flatter. Also offers a little bit of kind of pronation for if you are rotating out of the back. It really can be a nice instructional tool for a beginning thrower. And so for all those reasons, it's a great entry-level shoe, really flexible right out of the box, which is not as common from some of the bigger brands where often there's a hard, kind of unflexible outsole that takes quite a while to break in, a more plated design. These are going to be flexible and comfortable right out of the box.
David Storl was on the podcast recently, and that was one of the things he said, that they just felt like these were the ones right away, and that they felt like they were ready to go out of the box, and he loved them. And you guys are now working closely with David, and obviously looking forward to seeing what he does in these revolutions. But there's the glider, the glider, and he's wearing them and liking them.
Yeah, he expressed this to us, and we've heard this from a number of people, that often with some other throwing shoes, there's a week to 10-day period of time where shoes can really hurt your feet for a while. That there's they have to really break in. Your feet have to adjust to the harder shelled shoes. And David said, yeah, these didn't hurt at all right away. They felt comfortable right away. And that we were glad to hear that. And that was our experience in developing them as well.
So Joe helped in the design process of this first step for you, but then you guys moved on to making the Velossa stones. So tell us about the shoe that you built specifically for rotating and what Joe's working in.
And I'll compare them a little bit with the Revolution. So I'll grab two rights of the same shoe. Excuse me, two rights of two different shoes. So the first thing I kind of want to draw attention to is the curvature of the outsole itself. So this is the snow camo version of the Velossa Stones, our rotational shoe that Joe wore in Doha. when he threw 22.91 to win a world championship. And so up until that point, he had been wearing what was more of a glide shoe, or a shoe that maybe you're going to wear in the rain when it's slick. And so although he really liked the comfort of these, he liked a lot of aspects of these. You imagine the speed of that world class of a thrower, the difference of having a lower surface area contact on this kind of more curved design has really helped his speed, where the more kind of pancaked, flatter outsole was just more surface area, and it was harder for him to rotate, a little bit slower for him. So this was the right shoe for him, and thankfully he wore these for the first time in Doha when he won the world championship.
So cool. When I think about a lot of my throwers, especially my beginning throwers, because in Wisconsin recently we started the high school season, and you got kids who've never worn throwing shoes before, and kind of the old kind of dilemma was like, are you a glider or rotator? And then we want to get you in a glide shoe, you want to get you in a rotating shoe. And you already brought up kind of the nuance of, as I talk about my advanced throwers, a lot of them have multiple pairs of shoes, and they're pulling out the shoes that are a little bit slower on the surface, or grab the concrete a little bit more when it's rainy, or you get to a circle that has a slick ring. These are things that beginning throwers aren't really thinking about. They're just thinking about like trying to turn the right foot, trying to rotate in the back, and turn on the left and stack the left side, all the things we talk about technically as coaches, that throwing shoes let us do. But you got into some real kind of focused work there with the fact that the bottoms feel different, and maybe an advanced thrower is going to be able to tell that and be able to utilize the best parts of these shoes if they wanted to pick and choose.
Correct. And I think you'll even see some advanced athletes wear one shoe on their left shoe and an alternative shoe on their right foot. So one shoe on their left foot and a different shoe on their right. Let's say it's raining and they really want the traction of a left foot to sprint out of the back. They might want a smoother shoe for their right to turn in the middle and finish, but to sprint out of the back, that curve in a wet circle can actually be a disadvantage. You'll see a lot of folks slipping. And so it's where the shoes can really complement each other. Both shoes are going to allow for more feel of the ground than some other brands. And so if you imagine, again, maybe a beginning thrower, if the first pair that they put on when they're first learning, kind of a high arch, really hard curved, stiff, full plated rotational shoe, that feels pretty foreign, and they're more like a tap shoe. They can't really feel the ground. It's just so foreign, where I think, again, with a beginner, they're going to put these on and they feel the ground. They can actually feel what they're doing, as opposed to feeling kind of disconnected to it from this thicker, harder plate of plastic.
From a throws coach standpoint, I completely agree. And I've seen kids, get that first pair of rotating shoes, over the last 20 years I've been coaching, and it's such a foreign thing to have that hard plate in it, and it just doesn't work for everybody. And once, most kids, once they buy a pair of shoes, it's not like they're going to go back and get another one a couple of weeks later because it doesn't work. Right. And I think that's great that you have this kind of these feel the ground so much more. You've got a third option, or actually a third and fourth, in the Northern Lights, and kind of a variation of the Revolutions. Can you tell us a little bit about that other option?
Yeah, this is our Northern Lights design, and the biggest differentiator here is that the rubber used in the outsole is different than in the Revolutions or the Stones. And this has a wet tractions. It's like a tire technology rubber for wet conditions, for anti-slip. And so between all of our options, if it was a wet, slick ring, this would be the pair I would want to pull out. And we linked it then with this Northern Lights colorway to kind of link it to think in terms of nature and outside and climate and the elements, and that's what track and field everywhere in the world, but in particular in the North where we're from, you can have some track meets that are pretty gnarly, and in a really wet, slick ring, having traction to sprint or push out of the back might mean the difference between either winning or losing. And so these are going to have your best traction out of our full line. And then we have a tungsten line, which is going to be actually slightly faster than the Velossa Revolution. And so it's going to have a little bit of a lower grab, a little bit more speed. So that's kind of our line for the Velossa Revolution. Then you've got kind of the main line, the black colorway that has just traditional rubber, then the kind of all conditions rubber, and then our fastest version of those, which is our tungsten line.
Super cool. I love that you're thinking about, and this is where I think some of the bigger companies that, once you get into track, you're in a smaller niche. And then once you get into thrower, they're in even a smaller niche. And so they've made one shoe to kind of cover it all, or they've made two shoes and try to cover it all. And the fact that you come, full on with a track background and a throwing background, and you've thought about these different surfaces is critical. And what you said just earlier, Lynden's a Minnesota guy, I'm a Wisconsin guy, folks who are watching. And the weather conditions up here are insane, and we got to be ready for everything. So the idea of having two pairs in your bag and ready for whatever Mother Nature throws at you is critical. The other thing, I just watched the pros in Eugene, Oregon recently, and they're cracking open the new stadium. It's absolutely beautiful, but it rained about halfway through women's pro comp, and I watched a lot of the women fall. It's a new circle. It's fast. It hasn't kind of been it hasn't been broken in yet. The concrete is fresh, and so to have another option, I think is a really brilliant move for throwers out there.
Well, thanks. And I've had the experience as a thrower myself. I remember being a young thrower, being maybe in ninth grade, where it was starting to take it more and more seriously, and being at a bigger meet. We were in Mankato, and it was raining, and I continued to slip out of the back, and it was infuriating at the time, because there's just nothing I could do to get enough traction to sprint out of the back in the discus in this case. And so those kinds of things, when you've lived them, then you kind of have felt the pain of not being able to get traction. So it definitely informed us and our mindset in designing a complete line.
Lynden, I'm so excited about what you're putting out there for throwing athletes. Thank you for the effort it must take, the Herculean effort to get a company like this off the ground. You're battling the big guys, but you're doing an incredible service to the sport that I love, and so many of the people who are watching the video love. So thank you, and we wish Velossa the best of luck.
Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for the kind words. Thank you.